2. The coordination of the personality. We have considered, cursorily I realize, the fact that the ego appropriates to itself forms, through which expression can be made possible upon the various levels of divine manifestation. We observe that these forms, in due process of time, become embodiments of the will and purpose of their divine indweller. This indweller is the soul. As the evolutionary cycle runs its course, 3 developments take place. 1. The forms for expression are developed, little by little as a result of a. Successive incarnations. b. The impulse and consequent activity of desire. c. The interpretation of experience, intensifying and becoming more correct and adequate as time passes. 2. The self within, or identified with, the form nature, a. becomes slowly conscious, and consequently intelligibly active in the 3 worlds of human evolution. b. Shifts its focus of attention successively from one body to another, passing, in consciousness, into higher and higher states of awareness until the path of pursuit becomes the path of return, and desire for identification with form changes into aspiration for self-awareness. Later, comes identification with self on its own level of consciousness. c. Reorients itself and thus occultly, leaves behind the hitherto desirable and aspires to that which has not hitherto been seen. 3. The aspirant passes through an intermediate stage in the 343 process of evolution wherein divine attraction supersedes the attraction of the 3 worlds. This stage falls into 5 parts. A. A period wherein duality and lack of control are realized. B. A period wherein an assertion of self-control takes place, through the following process. I. Decentralization. I. Comprehension of the task ahead. I. An investigation, by the divine observer of the nature of form life. IV. Divine expression, through the medium of the form, understandingly practiced. C. A period wherein alignment takes place, and, through understanding and practice, the form is gradually subordinated to the requirements of the self, and begins to work in unison with that self. D. A period wherein the forms, aligned at increasingly frequent intervals, are integrated into a functioning, active personality. Swept by the power of their own dominant, integrated, personality life. Gradually controlled by the self, and fused into an instrument for effective world service. IV. Unified, in intent and purpose, with the soul. E. A period wherein the personality ray, and the soul ray are blended into one united energy, and the personality ray becomes a quality of, and complementary to, that of the soul, making soul purpose in the 3 worlds possible. It is thus that we progress, and in this manner form and consciousness, appearance and quality, are brought together and divine unity is achieved, thus ending the duality hitherto sensed, which up till this time has handicapped the aspirant. 2 angles of this matter warrant our attention. One is that covering the processes of the past evolutionary cycle which, as it has transpired, has brought the aspirant to the point of a sense duality, of consequent struggle, and of the hardly achieved reorientation towards reality. That period has been adequately covered, for all present purposes, by science, exoteric and esoteric. The other is the period of ultimate perfection, which is finally achieved as a result of the struggle. One period lies far behind us, and intelligent humanity has traveled far towards the period of realization. The other period lies far ahead. We will confine our studies to the task of the aspirant, as he reorients himself upon the probationary path, and becomes increasingly aware of the world of higher values, and of the existence of the kingdom of God. On this path he senses his duality in an almost distressing manner, and begins to aspire towards unity. This is the task today of the vast numbers of world aspirants. So widespread is the desire for this reorientation, that it has produced the present world upheaval, and is the spiritual source of the specific cause of the ideological conflicts now going on in every country. We will deal with the work of the disciples of the world as, having endeavored to bring about the desired reorientation, they learn the basic necessity of integrating the personality, and from that pass on to achieve contact or fusion with the self, the ego or soul. It will be wise to keep these 3 stages carefully in mind, because all the many modern psychological problems are founded upon 1. The process of reorientation with its consequences of personality upheaval and disorders. 2. The process of integration, which is going on within the lower nature of intelligent humanity, leading inevitably to duality and conflict. 3. The fusion of the personality and the soul in consciousness, with its physiological and personality effects, producing the problems and psychological dilemmas of the highly developed aspirant and disciple. In this stage, the so-called diseases of mystics become pronounced. We will also touch very briefly upon the efforts of the initiate, as he works through, and with the subdued mechanism of the personality in the service of the plan. He in his turn, as a functioning soul and body, united, aligned and used, becomes gradually aware of a still higher synthesis. After the third initiation, he enters upon a renewed effort to produce a more inclusive fusion and integration, this time with the monad or life aspect. About this later stage, little can be profitably said. Teaching which would be intelligible to an initiate of the third degree would be profitless and unintelligible even to the highly integrated and intelligent disciple, especially as such teaching is given necessarily through the use of most abstract and complicated symbols, requiring careful analysis and interpretation. None of this higher teaching is given through the medium of words, either spoken or written. Esoteric Psychology II, Chapter II, The Coordination of the Personality. Part IV. As I have studied the meditation work of each of you, and both you and I know whether it has been faithfully followed, or not, I have become aware of the basic need, and that is the need for alignment. You need a more direct contact between heart and soul. This, necessarily, in preparation for a still higher contact. The 2 parts of the exercise you have been following, since the new C group was organized, have not done what was intended, and only 3 of you have profited adequately from that work. I am, therefore, giving you a very simple alignment exercise which I would ask you to follow together until further notice. I emphasize the word together and shall continue so doing in the hope that the group 129 will move forward with a uniform procedure, for this will produce the greatest and most rapid results. It is good for you to have in mind that the better you do this exercise, and the quicker and closer your alignment, the better will be the group alignment. The exercise is so short and simple that you may regard it as too elementary. I assure you that it will reward any constant effort. It had been my intention to give another meditation, involving another center, but the results of the work done do not warrant this. Perhaps a better alignment may lead to a more constant application, and a more direct and understanding occult obedience. I will ask you, therefore, to do this simple alignment exercise every day. I start with the point of soul focus, of which you know much theoretically, and can know more practically. This falls into 3 stages. 1. Raise the consciousness into the head. 2. Carry the thought or consciousness upward through the astral body, and the mind to the soul. 3. Identify the personality consciousness with the soul consciousness, and realize that they are one. From that point, definitely and consciously, assume the attitude of the observer. This also involves 3 stages. 1. Observe the personality, and consider it from the angle of the etheric body. 2. Consciously throw soul energy down into the center at the base of the spine. Then raise it slowly, via the 5 centers and the 2 head centers, Ajna and highest head center, tip into the soul body. This produces, when correctly done, a vivifying of the sutratma and links the personality and soul into one blended unit. It is what might be called the acme of alignment. 3. Then endeavor to throw the attention of the united soul personality toward the spiritual triad. I. Reflect upon the antakana, and its relation to soul personality, and the monad. Discipleship in the New Age II. March 1947. My brothers, you will by now have recovered from the shock of the cessation of our outer communication. As you may well realize, or do you, my inner relation to you remains an entirely private and individual matter, known only to the aspiring disciple and myself. Such it must remain for this immediate life cycle. The strength of your radiance, your potential as a light bearer, and your ability to serve your fellowmen will demonstrate to your co-disciples in my ashram or on its periphery the fact of that relationship. It will prove that you, the personality, the soul, and the master of the ashram, are in contact. The Supreme Master, the Christ, said when last on earth, "By their fruits ye shall know them." In so saying, he indicated a definite line of guidance for all of us. A master has to know and gauge the disciple by the work which he does in the furthering of the plan, and not by the disciple's reaction to his aspiration. The attentive world has also to gauge the existent phase of divine expression in the disciple's daily life. By what else can the onlooker gauge it? The disciple is therefore under constant dual investigation. To this test, he must perforce himself add a third: his own position as the observer. He is thus exposed to criticism and 79 judgment from 3 angles, and upon this fact I would ask you carefully to ponder. A review at night along these 3 lines would be of value to all disciples, using the imagination, as far as possible, as an instrument of spiritual perception. Learn to imagine, as far as you can, how a master would view your day's endeavor, how your watching environment would have reacted to your life and words, and how you yourself regard the day's accomplishments. I would recommend this to all disciples and all of you in training for my ashram. And what I have here suggested might well be used also by the arcane school for the senior students. Discipleship in the New Age II. One of the main teachings which can be seen most clearly in all instructions of a truly esoteric character concerns the attitude of the student of the occult. He is supposed to be dealing with things subjective and esoteric. He aims to be a worker in white magic. As such, he must assume and consistently hold the position of the observer, detached from the mechanism of observation, 602, and contact. He must recognize himself as essentially a spiritual entity, different in nature, objectives and methods of working from the bodies which he considers it wise to occupy temporarily and to employ. He must realize his unity and lines of contact with all similar workers, and thus arrive at a conscious awareness of his position in the spiritual hierarchy of beings. So much misinformation has been spread abroad, and so much emphasis has been unwisely laid upon status and position in the so-called hierarchy of souls, that sane and balanced disciples now seek to turn their thoughts elsewhere and to eliminate as far as may be all thought of grades and spheres of activity. It is possible, in the swing of the pendulum, to swing too far in the opposite direction and to discount these stages of activity. Do not misunderstand me, however. I do not suggest that an attempt be made to place people, and to decide, where they stand upon the evolutionary ladder. This has been most foolishly done in the past, with much dishonor to the subject, so much so that, in the minds of the public, the whole matter has fallen into disrepute. If these stages are regarded sanely for what they are, states of extended consciousness, and grades of responsibility, then the danger of personality reaction to the terms, accepted disciple, initiate, adept, master, would be negligible and much trouble would be eliminated. It must ever be remembered that individual status is rigidly kept to oneself, and the point of evolution, which may be truthfully recognized as lying ahead of that of the average citizen, will be demonstrated by a life of active unselfish service and by the manifestation of an illumined vision which is ahead of the racial idea. A treatise on white magic. With you I can and must be entirely frank. Your innate honesty recognizes the same quality in others, and you would have no respect for me if I handled you with gloves, as the saying is. My function with you is not to tell you your faults, or to give you many directions. These you know and follow the true direction instinctively, even if at times you choose the longer way around towards your objective. You have two things to do which, if successfully accomplished, would very much increase your output in service and reorganize both your inner and your outer life. You have to work conscientiously with the time factor, and you have to make out of life a fuller expression of work well done. You have also to cultivate more definitely than you do the habit of mind, the trained attitude of the observer of life, of people and of yourself. You must develop the attentiveness of the one who looks on at life, and at the life struggle of others. It is necessary for you to learn that when you can avoid identifying yourself so closely with people, refraining from suffering so consciously with them, you can be of greater service to them and a finer friend and helper. Therefore, for you, detachment is an outstanding requirement, and a quality to be cultivated. This is not the detachment of self-protection or of self-immunization or of aloofness, but that soul detachment which works from soul levels, and, seeing all life in the light which streams from the soul, regards everything from the standpoint of eternity. You will then see the real values involved and the true perspectives of the picture. You need to apply to people and to circumstances the quality of interrogation and understanding which you endeavor to employ when you follow your art. You must see people truly and as they are, with their faults and their virtues, their divinity and their humanity. Am I not right, my brother? As time goes on, we can extend and deepen the analysis, but at first I only seek to emphasize to you these 2 points, or rather these 2 requirements, the right use of time, and its right adjustment in your life, and the cultivation of an attitude of detachment. I am of no use to you or to any of my disciples if I cannot be specific and direct. The work that I may ask you to do should tend to bring about certain of these needed adjustments. Discipleship in the New Age. In any group which has for its objective the development of the intuition, there must appear the concretizing faculty of the mind. This intuition must both offset and at the same time use. The mind emphasizes form and the building of forms. The intuition is formless, and yet the ideas intuited must express themselves through form. From this concretizing faculty, owing to your sense of beauty, and your sense of the essential values, you are singularly free. For you there must be the lesson of the equal divinity of form and of form building, with the creative work of organized detail in every balanced production. Beauty is, after all, as much of divinity as can be expressed through any one form. Remember that form and life are one. There is not but life in manifestation. Your power to intuit, therefore, will aid the group, so regard your work as a service to be definitely rendered. Emotional stress and strain and your intense love of beauty have been the principal training elements in your life. Oft you have been bewildered and your fellow men bewilder you at times. Seek for 1 year, to bring to bear upon them and upon yourself the light of the intellect, and let the power of a spiritually applied analysis and the consecrated functioning of the concrete mind be deliberately applied. Remain ever the observer, using the concrete mind as a divinely organized instrument. Work with symbols will be found of real value to you if you persevere. I will give you a hint and at them which your intuition will reveal. Where the converging lines of any symbol meet and where the many lines cross, there is a point of force and of illumination, a focused center through which the illumined mind can pierce. Ponder on this. Discipleship in the New Age. Personal Instructions, DAO. Group Instruction, December 1941. My brothers, I would like to start off this instruction with a simple statement as to the task which all disciples of the Masters throughout the world are engaged in undertaking, and which you also should consciously consider. It is the task of confronting the dweller on the threshold in your own life, and also in the group life, and then, from that vantage point of strength, face that dweller on behalf of humanity and thus aid humanity to vanquish this ancient evil. To do this presupposes crisis in your life, and in the life of humanity. The handling of crises is the hallmark of the disciple, and every crisis met and rightly handled provides, once the difficulty is acutely under the feet, the place from which an extended vision can be gained, fresh knowledge can flow in, and the transmuting light can shine from the angel of the presence and thus produce results. Each of you has passed through a cycle of real difficulty and strain. This is true of all disciples. The past 18 months have been months of precipitation, producing a chemicalization, an interior process of upheaval and probably outer behavior which may have caused concern to the observer within. This, however, is but the reaction of the 14 personality to undue pressure and strain, to world conditions and clearer vision. Vision reveals both the light and the dark, a thing which is oft forgotten. Disciples are fortunate if the major results were out in the physical body. The reactions of the physical body are the least important, and do the least harm to others. Where they were out in an emotional or mental condition, they are then apt to become a problem of fellow disciples, adding to their strain and necessitating an effort upon their part to carry the brother through with the least damage to the group. In this group work you need to remember that increasingly there will be no individual life. This is as it should be. Increasingly disciples should be aware of each other and tune in with ease on each other. Increasingly the bonds of illumined loyalty should control. Increasingly you will participate in each other's attitudes and conditions, and thus learn the basic lesson of understanding. Understanding is the secret behind all power, to achieve identification with any form of divine expression. Understanding is one of the prime factors in producing revelation, and this is one of the paradoxes of occultism. In the world of human thought, understanding follows the prescribed routine, it follows the presented fact. In the life of the spirit, understanding is a necessary predisposing cause of revelation. I would ask you to ponder on this, bracing yourself for revelation, through a deep understanding of the initiator in yourself. Each of you has to initiate your own individual crises. There is no one else who is responsible. Each of you together initiates the activity for which the group is responsible, and for which you have been brought together. Each of you initiates himself into the presence, through the medium of the angel, and into the shadow of the dweller on the threshold. Through this process, full consciousness is achieved. Discipleship in the New Age. II talks to disciples, group instruction.